When people praise you for being so low maintenance, why does it secretly sting? Like, really think about that. Why does a compliment feel like a warning label on your own presence? Why does being called easygoing feel less like freedom and more like a command to stay small? Just stop and think about that for a second. On the surface, right, it sounds flattering. You're so chill. You never complain. You're not dramatic. You're just easy. But here's the thing. The truth is inside you. There's this spike of anxiety, this tiny electric shock of guilt, because you know the unspoken rule behind that praise. You are valuable as long as you do not need too much. As long as you are available without asking for anything real in return. Now just imagine if one day you stopped performing that role. You stopped replying instantly. You stopped saying it's fine when it isn't. You stopped being the emotional emergency button for everyone around you. What do you think would happen? People would tell you you've changed. They would get confused, offended even, maybe afraid, because your silence would expose how much they depended on your self-abandonment. Here's what I'm saying. The moment you stop being endlessly available, the entire relational field around you starts to rearrange. Friends who loved your low demands, they begin to fade. Partners who relied on your flexibility, they start to panic. Family members who praised your independence, suddenly they're accusing you of being selfish. When you withdraw the free access to your energy, you don't just change your schedule. You change the hierarchy of every relationship you're in. So I'm asking you right now, are you actually low maintenance, or are you quietly disappearing in every room you enter? You laugh things off, you say, no worries, you swallow the reaction that rises in your throat, and then you lie awake, replaying the moment where you wanted to speak, but chose silence instead. This is not about being easygoing. This is about being erased. On the outside, the mask is calm. On the inside, the emotion is chaos. When you finally do have a need, your heart races, your palms sweat. Your mind scripts 10 apologies before you send one simple request. That is not personality. That is conditioning. And here's what I need you to understand. That's what happens when you grow up learning that your needs are a problem. Your feelings are too much. Your presence must never create inconvenience. You weren't born low maintenance. You were trained to make yourself low impact, trained to overfunction so no one had to take care of you, trained to never ask for help because help always came with a price, trained to please, to anticipate, so no one would explode or leave. But the real point lies here. As long as you wear low maintenance as a badge of honor, you stay the background character in your own life, reliable, supportive, invisible. But if you're willing to question that identity, if you're willing to tolerate the discomfort of being appropriately high maintenance, your role shifts. You move from accessory to main character, from emotional service provider to a human being whose needs actually matter, and whose needs are actually met. In this video, we're going to pull that mask apart. We're going to connect your low-maintenance pride to trauma responses, fawning, chronic self-abandonment. And here's the thing. Once you see the pattern, you will not be able to unsee it. After this, your relationships, your boundaries, your sense of self, they will never function the same way again. So take that mask and run a real experiment with it. Not in theory, in your actual week. When you stop being the always available hero, everything around you starts to tremble. Now imagine tomorrow you wake up and you decide no more instant replies. You see the message. You feel that old spike of urgency in your chest. But you wait 10 minutes, an hour, until the end of the day. You don't over-explain. You don't send a paragraph of apology. You just answer when you actually have energy. What happens? First, it looks small. Hey, from someone who's used to your immediate reaction. Wow, busy.
with that passive-aggressive edge. A friend who used to dump their crisis on you at 1 a.m. Suddenly they go quiet when you don't jump on the call. And here's what's interesting. They don't ask if you're okay. They ask why you weren't available. Just stop. Think about that. What does that reveal about your real value in their eyes? Here's the truth. You trained people to see you as the emotional emergency button. You taught them that your time, your silence, your presence could be pressed on demand. You responded at 2 a.m., so now 2 a.m. is normal. You said, it's fine, don't worry about it, when it wasn't. So now your hurt doesn't even register as a real emotion. When you pull back, even slightly, their reaction is not random. It's data. Now imagine if for 1 week you stopped managing everyone's feelings. You don't rush to reassure when someone sends a cold message.
You don't write 3 follow-ups when they leave you on red. You don't apologize for being busy, for being tired, for needing time. You just let your boundary exist without a speech. Who would notice? Who would panic? Who would disappear? And who would adapt, slow down, and actually ask how you are? This is where the identity conflict hits. You've built your whole reputation on being easygoing, no trouble, low maintenance, the flexible one, the understanding one, the one who never demands, never complains, never says, I need you now. So when you imagine changing the script, it feels like betrayal, it feels selfish, it feels dangerous. I'll tell you why. Because your nervous system still believes that having needs equals losing love. But the truth is, this is not about becoming difficult, it's about becoming real. The point lies in seeing that your constant availability has been a form of control too. You controlled rejection by erasing your needs before anyone else could. You controlled conflict by always saying yes and now. The second you stop, you see who was attached to your essence and who was attached to your function. So I'm asking you right now, if you actually ran that 1 week experiment, what would you discover? Who would fight your new boundary? Who would respect it? And who would just vanish the moment you stop performing? Because those reactions, they're not chaos, they're a map. And in the next part, we're going to decode exactly what that map is really showing you about your trauma, about your relationships, about the hidden economy of your energy. Those reactions are a map, yes. But a map to what? To the real thesis of this entire video.
Here's the truth. You weren't born low maintenance. You were trained to believe your needs were a problem. So you made yourself small to survive. That line, that's not poetry, that's programming. As a child, every ignored emotion, every eye roll when you cried, every you're too sensitive, it carved in deeper. If I want love, I must disappear. So I'm asking you now, is your chill personality really you? Or is it the mask that kept you safe? Stop and think about how people describe you. So easy, so understanding. You never need anything. It sounds like praise. But the point lies in what is missing. Where is the person who has preferences, who has limits, who has inconvenient emotions? Where did they go? I'll tell you why that praise feels both flattering and empty. Because it rewards your self-erasure. They are not admiring your soul.
They're admiring how little you cost them. When you stop being always available, everything changes. Not because you suddenly became difficult, but because their dependence on your invisibility gets exposed. Entire relational systems have quietly formed around you, being predictable, agreeable, low demand. You are the emotional shock absorber, the flexible one, the one who adjusts, softens, explains, forgives. Your chill presence, it holds the piece together. So other people never have to grow up emotionally. Now imagine if you stopped. Imagine you say, I can't talk right now, and you don't explain. Imagine you ask for help without apologizing. Watch what happens. Who gets tensed? Who gets sarcastic? Who calls you dramatic for having the same needs they've always had? Their reaction is not random. It reveals how much control they had over your nervous system through your compliance. This is not about becoming high maintenance. It's about seeing that your low-maintenance identity has been a survival strategy. There's a difference between genuine ease and trauma-driven compliance. Being truly easygoing, that's a choice rooted in security. I know I'm allowed to take up space, so I can flex without fear. Trauma-driven low maintenance says, if I take up space, love disappears, conflict explodes, shame falls on me. One is freedom, the other is a silent freeze. So when you never ask for help, when you minimize your pain, when you rush to soothe everyone's emotion before they even name it, that is not personality, that is conditioning. It is the fawn response dressed up as being low drama. And the cost, it's brutal. Resentment, burnout, confusion about who you are without the caretaker role. Your next level is this: understanding exactly how your current behavior gives other people power over your energy, your presence, your reactions. In the next part, we're going to strip that mask off and show you where your control actually begins. So now we go straight to the uncomfortable part, how your chill, your low maintenance mask quietly turns into other people's control panel. You think you're being easy, you think you're preventing drama, but the truth is, your predictability is teaching people exactly how to handle you, to get what they want. Here's the truth: when your reaction is always soft, always agreeable, always self-blaming, people learn fast. They learn that if they push, you fold. If they guilt trip, you apologize. If they withdraw, you chase. They don't need to scream. They don't need to threaten. They just need to press the right emotional button, and you will do the rest. Your nervous system does the work for them. Now imagine if someone has watched you for years. They've seen that you never stay angry. You always explain, you always take the blame. In the end, what happens? They stop respecting your boundary before you even set it, because they already know the ending of the movie. They know that if they ignore your message, you'll send 3 more. They know that if they forget your needs, you'll downplay them. Your low demands become their permission slip. Stop and think about the tiny signals that send you into overdrive. A simple sigh on the phone, a delayed reply. The "wow, I didn't expect you to react like that" comment, one passive-aggressive sentence, and suddenly your energy is hijacked. You're over-explaining, defending, writing paragraphs, replaying the conversation in your head, rushing to fix an emotion that isn't even yours. This is how control works on you, not through open aggression, but through your compulsion to restore harmony at any cost. They tug a thread. Your whole inner world rearranges. They send a cold "okay," you spiral. They say "it's fine, forget it," and you panic because your trauma tells you if someone is disappointed, you are unsafe. So you overfunction, you restore their comfort while abandoning your own. And here is where the point lies. Many of the relationships you call close, they're not built on mutual care. They're built on how useful you are, how flexible, how non-demanding. Who are you in that friendship? The one who listens for hours but never talks, the one who drives, pays, shows up, adjusts.
This is not about love, it's about utility. Your presence is valued, but your needs are not. I'll tell you why this becomes terrifying for people. When you finally change, the moment you stop reacting on command, the whole system shakes. You don't answer immediately. You don't send the long explanation. You don't rush to fix the mood. You choose silence and you choose delay. You choose, for once, your own boundary over their comfort, and suddenly you're cold, you're selfish, you're Tom, you're acting different. But the truth is, you didn't become cruel. You became less controllable. You stopped offering your emotional energy as a public resource. And that exposes who was connected to your heart and who was connected to your compliances. So I'm asking you now, if someone only feels safe when you are overgiving and under-needing, what does that say about what they actually want from you? And this is where we bring in Jung, because he saw this game long before low maintenance became a compliment. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Stop, think about that. Not accept your performance, not accept your mask, accept yourself completely. That means your needs, your limits, your anger, your irritation, your exhaustion, not just your capacity to endure and stay available. You were trained to accept only the version of you that doesn't disturb anyone. The quiet one, the easy one, the one who smiles and says, it's fine, while your body is screaming. But the truth is, if you reject your irritation, you reject your internal alarm system. When you feel that urge to cancel plans, to go silent, to not reply, you instantly judge yourself as dramatic,
too sensitive, difficult. I'll tell you why that reaction is so strong. Because somewhere in your history, having needs cost you connection. Now imagine if you treated those impulses differently. Research on childhood emotional neglect shows that when your feelings were ignored or mocked, you learned to survive by minimizing them. You became low maintenance to stay and keep yourself safe. So when your energy drops and your chest tightens before a call with a certain person, that is not random emotion, that is diagnostic data, that is your psyche saying, we are overdrawn, we are not safe to be real here, pull back. The point lies here, irritation is not the problem, it is the proof that your boundary has been crossed, or that you never had one, proof that your presence is being used, not respected when you withdraw. You think you're failing at being a good friend, a good partner, a good colleague. But what if that withdrawal is your last line of defense against total self-abandonment? This is not about you being weak. It's about your system trying to protect what little control and energy you have left. So I'm asking you now, who are you always calm and low maintenance around? And who actually lets you have needs? Stop! Think about the difference with some people. You never raise your voice, you never disagree, you never ask for help. You wear the mask of the endlessly available caretaker. With others, you can say, no, I'm tired, or that hurt me. And they don't punish you, they don't call you needy, they adjust. That contrast is your map. One environment feeds your mask, the other welcomes your entire presence. Here's the truth. When you start seeing your irritation, your silence, your urge to disappear as data, you stop attacking yourself and you start analyzing the relationship. You move from shame to diagnosis. And if you really want to know whether you're living in a trauma response, the next step is brutal. You have to look at how you actually show up, who you shrink for, who you overfunction for, and who you finally collapse with. So let's do it. Let's take the mask off. Not in theory, not in abstract psychology, in your actual daily life. This is the part where you stop calling it, I'm just easygoing, and start asking, or am I disappearing? When someone asks you, well, what do you want? What happens in your body? Do you have an answer? Or do you feel that sudden blank screen in your mind, that freeze? And then you hear yourself saying, I don't mind. Whatever you want. Stop. Think about that exact moment. Is that freedom? Or is then your nervous system slamming the door on your own desire? Because desire has always felt dangerous. When it's time to choose the restaurant, the movie, the weekend plan, do you genuinely not care? Or do you rush to say, I'm good with anything, because the tension of having a preference feels heavier than starving yourself emotionally? Here's the truth. Children who are punished, mocked, or ignored for their needs grow into adults who can't even feel those needs clearly. That blankness is not peace. It's a shutdown. Now imagine if you finally ask for something. You ask for reassurance, you ask for help moving, you ask your partner to text when they get home. What's your first internal reaction? Do you feel panic, like you've done something wrong? Do you instantly want to EDD, but it's not a big deal, don't worry about it, I'm fine? That's not just shyness, that is conditioning. That is a nervous system trained to believe that any request risks rejection. Conflict, shame. So I'm asking you now, who around you benefits from this version of you? Who gets irritated when you're not instantly available, when you don't pick up the phone, when your silence breaks their control? Who accuses you of being distant, when you're just exhausted, when your energy is gone because you've carried every emotion in the room? And who only appears when something needs to be solved, soothed, fixed by your presence, then disappears? The second they feel better, look at your own behaviors. Are you the one always saying, "It's okay, don't worry about me," while you overfunction at work? Cover for everyone. Answer every message. Are you the therapist friend who listens for hours but never talks about your own pain? Do you avoid asking for rides, favors, emotional support? Because the fear of being too much is louder than your actual need? How many times have you stayed silent when you were hurt, then called it maturity instead of self-erasure? The point lies here. This is not about being chill. It's about being invisible. This is not about having low needs. It's about practicing daily, quiet self-abandonment and calling it personality. But the truth is, your low-maintenance identity is costing you more than you think. In the next section, we're going to expose that price: resentment, burnout, one-sided relationships, and you will see exactly what your silence has been buying for other people and what it has been stealing from you. That price doesn't show up all at once. It shows up in tiny transactions you barely notice. Every forced yes, every immediate response, every "I'm fine" when your chest is tight and your throat is burning. Each one is a small withdrawal from your own energy, a quiet transfer of power away from you and into the hands of whoever needs you in that moment. Stop. Think. How many times today did you override yourself? You were tired, but you agreed to stay late. You were hurt, but you said it was no big deal. You wanted silence, but you picked up the phone because you didn't want them to feel rejected one by one. These moments look harmless, but the truth is, they are tiny self-betrayals, and your nervous system keeps the score even when your mind pretends it's nothing. Now imagine if your life is a book. Every boundary you don't set, every emotion you swallow,
is like tearing out a page and handing it to someone else. Here, you take this scene. Here, you decide this chapter. You keep doing it because you want to be easy, pleasant, low maintenance. Then one day, you look down at what's left in your hands and you realize you don't recognize the plot. You don't know what story you're in anymore because other people have been writing it with the pages you gave away. What does that feel like from the inside? Chronic tiredness that sleep doesn't fix, a low-level frustration humming underneath your smile, resentment toward people you swear you love because you keep showing up for their needs while yours sit in the dark, emotional numbness where joy should be, burnout at work because you are the reliable one, the overfunctioner, the one who never says no,
and this haunting sense that you are invisible, even in the relationships that are supposed to see you the most. Here's the truth. When you never voice a need, it almost never gets met. When needs are never met, they don't disappear, they ferment. That unspoken longing turns into resentment. Resentment silently turns into distance. Distance gets misread by other people as you being called independent, low maintenance. So I'm asking you now, how many people in your life think you don't need anything? When the reality is, you trained them not to look too closely. And the point lies here. This pattern doesn't just affect how you feel. It affects who you attract. When your whole mask is, "I'm easy," or "I'm available, I don't need much," you become a magnet for emotionally unavailable partners and one-sided friendships. Why? I'll tell you why. because you are perfect. For people who want presence without responsibility, connection without accountability, intimacy without having to meet anyone halfway. They get the benefit of your energy, your attention, your care, while you get to carry the quiet H of being the strong one, the understanding one, the one who never asks. Well, now, this is not about you being genuinely chill, it's about you being conditioned to disappear. So let's be very clear here. This is not about turning you into a cold, distant statue who doesn't care about anyone. This is not about ghosting everyone, blocking the world, pretending you don't need love. This is not about becoming hard. It's about becoming honest about how much energy you actually have, honest about how much emotion you've been swallowing, just to keep your easygoing mask in place. Because you were never born low maintenance. You were trained to believe that needing less made you safer, trained to believe that asking for help made you a burden. So I'm asking you now, how much longer will you keep abandoning yourself first, just so no one can accuse you of being too much? Here's the truth. This work is not about disappearing from the world. It's about finally appearing in your own life. It's about choosing yourself with the same loyalty you've always given to everyone else. You know how fiercely you show up when someone you care about needs you? Now imagine if you brought even half of that presence to your own body, your own limits, your own nervous system. Choosing yourself is not betrayal, it's balance. You are not turning against people when you stop being endlessly available. You are turning toward yourself. The point lies here. You are allowed to protect your energy and still love deeply. You're allowed to say no and still be a good friend, a good partner, a good human. Carl Jung called this individuation, big word, simple meaning. Individuation is the process of becoming who you actually are instead of who you had to be to keep the peace or stay loved. It's the moment you stop living as a role and start living as a person. No more being just the strong one, the chill one, the understanding one. You get to be whole, not just useful. And part of becoming an individual is this. Your needs, your preferences, your boundaries are allowed to exist in the room, even when they inconvenience someone. That is the test. Can your no stand there without you rushing to soften it? Can your limits stay in place, even when someone rolls their eyes, sulks, calls you selfish? And now stop. Think about this. What if the most loving thing you could do for the people in your life is to stop lying about what you can handle? Stop saying it's fine when your chest is tight. Stop pretending you're available when your energy is already at zero. I'll tell you why this matters. Every time you fake capacity, you train them to expect a version of you that is slowly dying. Pattern interrupt. Silence is not punishment. This is not about revenge. It's about responsibility. Conscious silence, conscious unavailability is you refusing to participate in your own depletion when you stop over-explaining, when you pause before responding, when you let your quiet speak for you. Your silence becomes power, not a weapon. So now we go deeper into that silence you're learning to hold. Because this is where your entire identity starts to shift. When you stop explaining, when you stop sending 3 paragraphs to justify a simple no, something radical happens. The power balance changes, not out there first, inside you. You were trained to argue for your right to exist, to defend your emotions, to prove you're not too much. But the truth is, every extra explanation is a little contract that says you still get to be the judge of me. When you answer every accusation, every guilt trip, every late-night drama text, you keep yourself on the hook. Your reaction is the rope. Your silence cuts it, so stop. Think about this, what speaks louder. Another emotional essay, or a calm, grounded delay. When you don't respond immediately, when you take hours or days instead of minutes, your presence stops being an emergency service and becomes a choice. Your quiet response time is not passive aggression. It's you saying, I'm not available to be used like this anymore. Here's the truth. This is not about escape, it's about control. This is not about disappearing from life. It's about withdrawing from being constantly available in other people's awareness. You still show up to your work, your responsibilities, your real priorities. You just stop showing up as the 24/7 emotional vending machine. That spits out reassurance, advice, self-abandonment, on demand. Now imagine if you had a door, a real one, not the invisible door everyone walks through, whenever they feel lonely, bored, or triggered. When you step back, when you let messages sit, when you say, I'll respond when I have the energy, you close that door. You don't slam it, you simply lock it from the inside
and hold the key. That is self-possession. That is withdrawal as power. You were raised to be predictable, instant reply, automatic, yes, oversharing your pain so people don't misread you. But the point lies exactly there. They were never really reading you. They were reading the mask. You kept performing. When you stop narrating every feeling and when you don't rush to fix the tension with explanations, you become something unfamiliar to them. You become a mystery. No more, of course I can. No more 2 a.m. crisis calls answered on the first ring. No more paragraphs to clean up someone else's discomfort. You let people sit with not knowing where you are, what you think, how you feel about their last message. You let their own anxiety echo in the silence. Where your rescue used to be. So I'm asking you now, how long will you keep letting everyone read you?
like an open manual. How long will you keep training people that your energy is free, your presence guaranteed, your boundary negotiable? When will you let your silence speak for you? So I'm asking you now, how long will you keep pulling your own strings and calling it being easygoing? How long will you keep performing calm while your chest is tight and your jaw is locked? How long will you keep telling yourself, it's fine, it's not a big deal, when your whole body knows it is? How long will you keep saying yes when your body is screaming no? How long will you apologize for being tired? How long will you let people treat your time like it's free, your energy like it's unlimited, your presence like it's guaranteed? Stop. Think. Who taught you that the safest way to exist was to disappear behind a pleasant mask? Here's the truth. You weren't born low maintenance. You were trained. Trained by caregivers who were overwhelmed, inconsistent, or emotionally absent. Trained by people who rolled their eyes when you cried, went cold when you were upset, or praised you only when you were no trouble. As a child, you learned fast that your emotions were expensive and their approval was cheap, only when you needed nothing. So now, every time someone sighs, you rush. Every time someone frowns, you explain. Every time someone is disappointed, you fix. It's like there are invisible threads tied to your hands, your voice, your schedule. Someone pulls a string and you dance, smile, soften your tone. Say, no worries, I don't mind. But the truth is, you do mind. Your nervous system is paying the bill. Your mouth keeps waving. So I'm asking you, now, who is holding those strings? Is it the parent who only hugged you when you were good? The partner who calls you chill while never asking what you actually feel? The boss who knows you'll always stay late because you never say no? The friends who love that you listen for hours but never notice you're exhausted? This is not about being easygoing, it's about being erased. Research on childhood emotional neglect shows that kids who learn their feelings are unwelcome, grow into adults who minimize every need. Trauma theory calls it the fawn response. You appease. You overfunction. You become endlessly available, so you won't be abandoned. You call it your personality. I'll tell you why that's dangerous, because you attract people who love access to you, not responsibility for you. Now imagine if you cut just one string. You don't reply immediately. You say, "I'll think about it." You admit, "I'm tired. I can't today." You ask for what you actually want. Watch what happens in the silence after that. Who gets irritated? Who calls you selfish? Who suddenly feels weird around you? Because you're no longer dancing on command. This point lies here. Becoming a mystery is not about playing games. It's about reclaiming control of your presence. Appropriate high maintenance means you expect care, you expect reciprocity, you expect your boundaries to matter as much as your yes. Being low maintenance isn't noble when it costs you yourself. So stop, think. Who taught you that the safest version of you was the one who needed nothing? You weren't born apologizing for your emotions. You learned it in very specific rooms with very specific people. As a child, you were studying the emotional weather all the time. Which reactions brought warmth? Which emotions brought distance? Cry. And someone sighed, rolled their eyes, or walked away. Stay quiet, stay good. And suddenly the room relaxed. Your nervous system made the connection fast. Less emotion equals more safety, more approval, more control over the chaos around you. Now imagine if every time you were sad, you heard, "Stop being dramatic." Every time you were angry, you were punished or mocked. Every time you wanted comfort, you were told, "You're fine, it's not a big deal." But when you entertained, helped, or stayed out of the way, you were praised. "You're so mature, you're so independent, you never ask for anything." That's not a compliment, that's conditioning. Here's the truth. Research on childhood emotional neglect shows that when a child's inner world is ignored, minimized, or treated as an inconvenience, they don't stop feeling, they stop showing. They push their needs underground because the reaction to the need feels more dangerous than the pain itself. So I'm asking you now, how many times did you swallow your tears just to keep the peace? How many times did your silence protect other people's comfort while it drained your own energy? The point lies in what got rewarded. If you were praised for helping your parents, for listening to their problems, for taking care of siblings, for being easy, low maintenance, no trouble, your brain built a rule. I have value when I am available, flexible, and quiet. If you complained, you were ungrateful. If you said no, you were selfish. So you learned to be endlessly accommodating, to bend instead of break, to make your presence soothing and your needs invisible. I'll tell you why this feels so natural now. It's not personality, it's training. Your worth got tied to your availability. Your identity fused with being the one who adjusts, the one who listens, the one who doesn't react, the one who has no boundary. And over time, that mask became so tight, you started calling it just who I am. But the truth is, this is not about being easygoing. It's about being programmed to self-abandon so other people don't have to grow. Pattern interrupt. You are not low maintenance by nature. You are low maintenance by training. Say that again in your mind. Let it land. Because once you see that this trait was built to protect you in an unsafe emotional environment, the cultural praise for it starts to sound different. You're so chill. You never need anything. Is that admiration? Or is that relief that you won't require real presence from them? So when people call you easy, chill, low maintenance, you need to stop and think, is this love or is this relief? Here's a truth you're not supposed to see. Being endlessly available is not a virtue. It's a prison with pretty wallpaper. On the outside, that prison looks beautiful. The cultural script worships the cool, unbothered one, the friend who never gets upset, the partner who understands everything, the employee who stays late, takes on extra work, never complains. And I'll tell you why this script is so popular. Low maintenance people are easy to use, easy to manage, easy to overlook. They don't create emotional problems, they absorb them, especially if you're a woman or part of any marginalized group. You've been trained into this role. Be accommodating, be flexible, be grateful, don't be too emotional, don't be too much. But the truth is, this is not about being genuinely easygoing. It's about being strategically small, so other people can stay comfortable and in control. What does that cost you? You become the one who gets forgotten, the one who gets the late text, the cancelled plans, the sorry, I've just been busy. You're expected to understand when they disappear, understand when they can't show up, understand why their crisis matters more than your quiet breakdown in the shower. The point lies here, their praise for your low-maintenance mask is built on the assumption that your needs will always move out of the way for theirs. Research on emotional neglect shows that children who learn their feelings are unwelcome grow into adults who minimize needs just to feel safe. Now imagine if that child becomes you at work, in love, in friendships. You never ask for help. You downplay your pain. You overfunction so no one has to take care of you. People call you strong, independent, chill. Inside, you're exhausted, resentful, and strangely invisible. And when people realize you won't complain, won't ask for much, will always understand, and something darker happens. You become the perfect target. Emotional dumping ground, backup therapist, the one who picks up the slack on the team, the partner who carries the emotional labor while the other stays emotionally unavailable. They pour their emotion into you, they unload their chaos.
And your silence becomes their permission slip. So I'm asking you now, who really benefits from you being low maintenance? Who gains when you never say no? Never need care? Never set a boundary? They don't call you low maintenance because they see your soul. They call you low maintenance because you don't cost them anything. And the more predictable that becomes, the more dangerous it is. So now your predictability becomes the perfect tool. People know exactly what button to press. They know you will answer. You will be calm. You will fix it. And here's the truth. At that point, you're not a person in their mind. You're a function, a service, an emotional emergency button installed in human form. Stop. Think about how that plays out. Your phone lights up only when there is drama. Can I vent? I'm freaking out. I need your advice. They press.
You pick up. You absorb their emotion. You lend your energy. You talk them down from the ledge. You stay on the line for hours. You give presence, clarity, comfort. Then what happens when they feel better? The call ends. The chat dies. Silence. No follow-up. No, hey, were you after holding all that for me? No curiosity about your reaction, your body, your exhaustion. They walk away regulated, you're left flooded and alone. This is the use-discard cycle. Press, release, disappear. And because you are so consistently low maintenance, they don't even imagine that you might need anything in return. You trained them to believe you don't. I'll tell you why this feels so familiar in your nervous system. This is the fawn response in action: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is when you over-accommodate, over-explain, over-give to stay safe.
As a child, you learned that being easy, quiet, endlessly available kept the peace. So now, as an adult, you wear that same mask and call it chill. But the truth is, this is not about being genuinely easygoing. It's about survival. Research on emotional neglect shows that kids whose feelings were ignored learned to minimize their needs just to keep connection. So you became the child who didn't complain, didn't cry, didn't ask. Now imagine if that child grows up and becomes the friend who never says, I'm not available. The partner who never says, I can't hold this right now. The colleague who always stays late. Of course, people treat you like an emergency button. You trained yourself to be pressable. The point lies here. Predictability without boundaries is not kindness. It is self-erasure.
When people can predict that you will never say no, never be angry, never pull back your energy, they stop relating to your humanity and start relating to your function. You are the regulator, the fixer, the one who absorbs chaos, so they can stay in control of their own image. So I'm asking you now, if you stopped being the emergency button, who would remain? If you stopped answering every late-night crisis, if you chose silence instead of the automatic response, if you let their call go unanswered, who would still seek your presence when they didn't need anything from you? I know. Who would ask about your inner world, not just your availability? So now we arrive here at the real turning point. What happens after you take that mask off, after you stop performing the low-maintenance role you were praised for your whole life?
And you finally ask yourself, whose life am I actually living? Stop. Think about the journey we just walked through. You were not born easy. You were trained to be convenient. You learned to minimize your needs, to overfunction, to fawn, to stay endlessly available, because in your childhood, environment, conflict, rejection, or shame felt life-threatening. So you disappeared yourself to keep the peace. You became the calm background presence while your own emotions went into exile. Here's the truth. Why being low maintenance is often a trauma response is simple. You learned that your needs were dangerous, so you made yourself disappear. This is not about being genuinely easygoing. It's about chronic self-abandonment disguised as maturity.
It's about calling burnout, I'm just independent. Calling loneliness, I'm just low drama, while your nervous system is screaming for care you never received. I'll tell you why this matters. When you erase your needs, you don't just avoid conflict, you erase intimacy. You attract people who love your availability, but not your humanity. You become the emotional emergency button for everyone else. And then you wonder why you feel empty, resentful, confused about who you are without their crises to manage. That confusion is the cost of the persona. Now imagine if instead of being proudly low maintenance, you became appropriately high maintenance. What would that look like? It would mean allowing yourself to have needs without apology, to make reasonable requests, to set a boundary and hold it, to expect reciprocity, not as a luxury, but as the minimum price of admission to your life. It would mean your presence is valuable and your absence has weight. The point lies in practice, not theory. So here is your experiment for this week. Ask for one specific favor from someone you usually caretake. Delay one response instead of replying instantly. Say, I need to think about that before you agree. When someone asks how you are, tell the truth. I'm actually not okay. Can we talk? Then watch who responds with care and who reacts with irritation, who leans in when you stop being endlessly available, and who pulls away when your reaction is no longer guaranteed. But the truth is, this is your individuation moment. This is you stepping out of the background role and into the main character of your own life. So I'm asking you now, how long will you keep abandoning yourself to stay low maintenance for people who would never bleed like that for you? How long will you wear a mask that keeps you loved, but not known? You are allowed to be appropriately high maintenance. You are allowed to take up space, to need rest, to need reassurance, to need respect. You are allowed to require emotional effort from the people who claim to care about you. This video is not about turning you into a demanding tyrant. It's about helping you reclaim control of your energy, your boundaries, your value. So if this pierced something in you, stay with this work. Stay for more content on boundaries, individuation, and trauma healing, and share this with the chill friend who is secretly exhausted, because the moment you stop being proudly low maintenance and start honoring your needs, everything about who is truly meant to walk beside you will change.